first 1,000 copies. And what that tells you is that there are a lot of people that want to know how to build parent capacity and how to have engagement and how to turn around and transform high poverty schools. That's what that tells you those first 3 weeks. Most books sell about 300-400 copies. And so for that 1,000 mark, which is what they anticipated for the year, was 2,000, to have been moved past the first 3 weeks, I'm excited, but more importantly, I'm excited about the resources in the hands of others. Let me also acknowledge my dad. I saw he came in, and if it were not for him, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you. So Reverend Brown, thank you for being here this evening, and I'm so glad that you were able to make it. All right, so as I delay for Shane, just to get a feel of who is in this room, if you are someone who has taught over 20 years, whether you're retired or not, please raise your hand. You've taught over 20 years, okay. If you are someone who is currently in the classroom or in a school teaching currently now in some kind of instructional capacity, can you raise your hand if you're currently in school and you're still, sir, how long have you been teaching? 22 years, okay, and traveled from Alton, all right. And how long did you teach? 33 years. 33 years, all right. Anyone that's taught 50 years in this space? Okay, so 33, 40, 33, 40 years, 22. That's pretty remarkable. If you are a school board member in a district somewhere in St. Louis or in Kansas, raise your hand. All right, with one school board member. If you're someone that works in a school in a support services capacity, raise your hand. All right, so we have director. If you are in central office, raise your hand. I think that's those two back there. All right, I think we've covered, and if you are a community member, if I may ask, just a community member that wants to be here because you are a parent in the community, raise your hand. All right. We just covered every category, just about, in the school system, which is exciting to see. And I would venture to say there are at least 4 or 5 different school districts in this space, from Parkway to Central St. Louis is what I would consider it, to Hazelwood, to Berg Ford, to Alton, to St. Louis City. It's wonderful to see this cross-section of people in this space. Now with that, as I have delayed just a little bit to get right to the exact time for Shane, are you okay? It's 6 o'clock on the nose? All right, let me turn it over to you for the introduction.
Hello, everyone. Hi, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It really is a pleasure to be able to host Dr. Anderson this evening. Apologies for the change in venue. I'm so happy that you all were able to find it. If you did not hear, we are having a power outage at the store. Super fun, but we pivot, we do things, we change, and we adapt. So we are very thankful for our incredible partners at Schlafly to be able to help us host tonight's event. So I did want to have an incredible hand for Schlafly Public Library, their staff, and just everyone involved. This is presented by Left Bank Books. We thank you so much for your support. When you spend money locally, not only are you helping keep us in business, but you are also, your tax money goes directly back into the community at a higher rate. Most of you are educators. I'm certain that your schools appreciate the money around being spent and coming back into your community. But not only is that money supporting your schools, it's supporting the libraries like the one we are in. It's helping keep your streets paved. It helps keep the museums free in Tower Grove or in Forest Park. So those are some things that when you spend money at a place like Left Bank Books, it goes directly back into your community, and we very much appreciate your support. If you have not already purchased a book tonight, we are selling them in the back of the room. If you have already bought a book, and if you bought it elsewhere, don't tell me, but if you have already bought a book, we appreciate you telling other people that the books are available at our store. We will have signed copies available after the event, so people can order on our website, left-bank.com, or they can come into the store and enjoy an incredible experience as we get ready to celebrate our 55th birthday this summer. And we are able to celebrate 55 years because of the support of our community, so thank you all so much. We did have a power outage, so I will curtail a little bit of my introduction, and I will just say that we are incredibly excited to have Dr. Tiffany Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the first African-American female superintendent at Topeka School District. I'm doing this from memory, which is a terrible idea.
Probably good enough.
But she is also from St. Louis, and we are so happy to be able to welcome her back. This in Ruston was her neighborhood. We were restored growing up, so we are incredibly honored to be hosting you this evening. All right, without further ado, would you all please help me in welcoming Dr. Tiffany C. Anderson.
All right, as we get started, since many of you I do know, I'm going to start off with just a little bit. I can't, every good teacher loves to talk about their babies. So I cannot start without at least giving a little snippet of Jennings. Recently, Topeka was featured on CBS News for what we do with parents. But I'm not going to start with that because that's on their website. And if you want to see that video, then go to their website to see that video. But since I'm in St. Louis, I switched out the video. And Shane had CBS ready. But I'm going to start with where we are because I want you to know that everything that we share is possible anywhere. And it's possible in quick order. Kids are counting on you to make that happen. And if you were a teacher and you're not the principal or the superintendent, these are ideas that you can take back. If nothing else, you can say, please buy this resource because this is something that will open the eyes, hearts, and minds of those that are around you. He gave a little bit of the introduction of just this is Tiffany Anderson from St. Louis. I'm going to start with the video and then I'll share a little bit about the background of Topeka if you're not familiar with Topeka, and then we'll jump into some content. I took pieces directly from the book in here, so just about anything I share, you should be able to find in the book as well. All right, but we'll start off. Oh, you're going to do that for me?
The fun thing is occupied by the projector thing, so.
Okay.
That's my tech.
And that's okay, because I'll be able to change it. But can we pull up the Al Jazeera video? Thank you so much. And if you are seeking this video, not sure that Al Jazeera still has them on their site, but if you type in Al Jazeera Jennings School District, this will come up. I save videos for future use when I speak around the country, and so there is a YouTube link. I don't have any other personal social media. Oh, there's a little, that's my time to stop talking and turn over to this video. But if you want to look at this video, if you put Al Jazeera Jennings School District, this should come up under a Tiffany Anderson YouTube link that you can subscribe to for future links as well.
Meet Tiffany Anderson, part-time crossing guard and full-time school superintendent of the Jennings School District. She leaves her Kansas City home at 2 in the morning to get to this St. Louis suburb by 6.
Have a good day, be good. Awesome, awesome, see you later.
Every day, Anderson sets an exhausting pace in the school hallways.
Okay, let me go here and take this photo.
And she doesn't drink coffee.
This is what a great line should look like.
In the 4 years since Anderson blew into Jennings like a whirlwind, she's helped establish a community food bank, a shelter for homeless students, a foundation that gives away clothes, shoes, toiletries, and school supplies, both high-tech and low-tech. And she's put a washer and dryer in each school for low-income kids. She's set up access to a doctor in the schools. She's increased teacher salaries and brought music and fine arts back to the district.
We really looked at what gets in the way of kids wanting to be at school or doing well at school. I think those are the things that, for me, I am most proud of.
The Jennings District, once one of Missouri's lowest performing, has reached full accreditation under Anderson for the first time in a decade. Grades are up, graduation rates are up, scholarship funds are up, and the district, which was operating under a $2 million deficit before Anderson got here, now has a balanced budget. Teacher Chris Slinkard sold his home in the much bigger Kansas City School District just so he could follow Anderson here after working with her once before.
She inspires greatness around her, and she makes you truly believe and know for a fact that you are making a change.
Anderson's first order of business when she arrived was tackling the tough home lives of many of the students in this mostly Black, low-income suburb.
The first challenge that I found in meeting people were the needs of poverty, food, literally. So in October of 2012, we opened the community cupboard. We give out 8,000 pounds of food a month, which is 200 to 400 families.
Then she helped turn this dilapidated home into Hope House, the student homeless shelter.
When children are homeless, as a community, we must take the responsibility to address that.
Anderson is relentlessly pushing Jennings businesses to hire her graduates. She even hired unemployed former students, like Samuel Brown, who now works at the food bank.
When the superintendent gave me this job, it made me grow into a man that I'm become now, you know, so I feel good about it.
How grateful are you to her?
I can't even see it, I'm thankful.
So how did she do it all? Well, she started just by asking for stuff, applying for grants.
When people know the story, they want to be part of helping you. They just need to know how.
Anderson's constantly in motion, helping out at the food bank, or jumping in to substitute teach,
I'm gonna see if you get it right.
or marching kids through the crosswalk, handing out goodies.
Remember you helped me the other day? So I got to go there. What are you doing this day?
The principal of Jennings High School tries to keep up with her.
She sets the tone. See, the leader sets the tone. The leader creates the vision. The leader hires the staff, but you have to have the right people on the boat. She has done that.
Excellent line, preschool, excellent line.
Oh, and about Anderson's boundless energy,
I call it my Christmas every day. He can sit in this chair as I move around. It is like Christmas every day. I shouldn't say we're doing it for the task that we have to do. So I truly believe in the spiritual aspect. Clearly, I'm meant to be a teacher.
but these days are bittersweet for Anderson. She is leaving Jennings at the end of the school year.
So I thank you because you all have embraced this vision.
Her last all-district meeting got emotional. She's preparing to take over as the first Black female school superintendent in Topeka, Kansas. That's home to the landmark Brown versus Board of Education case that desegregated schools. Anderson says she's taking a pay cut to go there.
This work isn't about money or any of those things. This work is about serving children well and serving people well. This work is about transforming communities in ways that people thought weren't possible.
So your vision, I just pray that somebody comes with the same vision that we can keep it moving because.
Well, you know, community won't allow anything less.
So watch out, Topeka. There's a tornado in tennis shoes heading your way, and your kids might just be better off for it.
Let's go on.
And this has been the tornado season.
Andy Roaston, Al Jazeera, Jennings, Missouri.
Everything.
Drinking warm water.
Everything you saw in that video is because of parents. Everything that you saw was an investment in families. See, we think that schools improve because we can focus on scores and get those standards up and ensure that students have all that they need to learn when they get to the classroom. And guess what? When they leave the classroom and they go home, and over the summer, those 2 or 3 months, they go back home to families. When they leave the classroom at the end of the night and they go back home to a family that may or may not be dysfunctional. And so if we don't engage families, anything that we do will not be sustainable. So all the services that you saw in there, a lot of people will say, man, we really don't need to be worried about social services. We shouldn't be giving out food. Why are we worried about mental health? Who are we to be giving health care? We're doing everything possible for these children. That's not our role. In fact, that is our role. And I'll tell you why. It's because schools are the center of the community. If you change a school, you change the community. If you change the community, you can actually transform the school. I'm so glad I have, look, he's going to be my clicker today. You sure? Okay. All right. And so with this, as we go to this very next slide, and you already know the book, there are a few extra copies of the book. So if you end up not buying the book tonight, we are going to be giving out giveaways at the very end. And if you bought a book and would like an extra to be able to give out, we'll be giving that out so that you have a couple of books and a couple of gift cards for Left Bank. So this very next slide that I often share when I speak, and we'll go to the very next slide. It's really about the demographics, because some people think this can only happen in a district that looks like this. Or in Topeka, Kansas, it's because Dr. Anderson is the first Black female and other people can't do this. Or because we're a small district or a large district or we're a wealthy district. This can happen anywhere. These are the 3 places that I've been, and University Academy isn't listed on there. It's probably one of the only blue ribbon charter schools. It wasn't that case before I started, but it was within a year of being there, and it's still a blue ribbon charter school today. But the rest of the traditional public schools, from Jennings to Montgomery County to Topeka, you can see the demographics are very different on all 3 of those spaces. spaces. And all three of those spaces, even the racial makeup is different. So as we go to this very next slide and we take a look at how we make this possible, I'm going to tie this into the book this evening. And before we start our book signing, I want you to know about parent capacity in terms of what does that mean. So we all have the capacity to learn and grow. Capacity is just like filling a glass bottle of water. Just imagine if you filled that and the water overflowed and there was nothing inside the water, no rocks, nothing inside the water, that water would fill all the way to the top. I wish I had a bucket right here to show that happening. But if I put rocks and all kinds of barriers in that space, much less water is going to be able to go in. So this book is about how do we move the big rocks? How do we get those barriers out of the way? So the definition of parent capacity in the book, I talk about research and John Hattie's research, Michael Fullin's research, and I use the word capacity as it relates to teachers. All we've done is taken out the word teachers, still use the word parent capacity, and my definition of parent capacity is the degree in which parents are empowered and intrinsically engaged to support student learning and growth. Intrinsically engaged means that I don't have to say, hey, I need you to bring your child to school. I need you to make sure they get their homework. Intrinsically engaged is that they want to be there. They want to show up. So I've had the joy of traveling the country, or in and out of the country, to be able to see places that are doing this all the time, and to be able to see that parent capacity can be grown in a short period of time, and it can change outcomes. So this very next slide that you see, we won't get through all of these slides in the interest of your time. Left Bank said, can you talk for 10 or 15 minutes? Y'all, I can talk for about an hour and 15 minutes or longer, but I know that you came to get your book signed and you probably have other things to do. So as I go through these next few slides, I'm just going to give some examples in short order. And then if you email me and you wonder where am I speaking at next, I'll be back in St. Louis in October at 2 or 3 different events. And so if you email and wonder what's the closest place to you or place that you're traveling, I'll let you know if I'll be there. But if you already saw the Al Jazeera video, here's the reason why parent capacity is important, and everyone in this room is affected by this piece. I actually used Missouri as an example of inequities in funding and the funding formula, but every school district is funded in this way. See, local funding is inequitable, state funding is volatile, federal funding is restrictive, and high needs districts are disproportionately affected by those shortcomings. So let's take a closer look at this. Now, when you look at funding in the very back of the book in chapter 4, it's really about the capacity to fund schools. How do you fund your vision? And so sometimes we think, man, because the school district, let's say I'm a teacher in the classroom, because the school district doesn't do this, I can't make this happen. Let me tell you that what you saw on the Jennings piece, when I started, we were at a deficit. And that deficit was significant. And so people thought, man, because they had been frozen. Like I see some Jennings teachers in here, and I think you all were frozen. Ms. Foster, it's wonderful to see you. And when I opened this up for questions, she actually drove to Topeka for about 4 or 5 years. 5 years, retired from Jennings, drove to Topeka, and she's now working in St. Louis City. So she is twice retired and looks very young to be twice retired. But I think Jennings had been frozen for maybe 3 or 4 years in terms of salaries when I started. In a deficit, another Jennings HR professional, no longer, she now works for corporate and oversees HR professionals across many states. But when I started, Jennings was in a deficit and salaries were frozen. So as we go to this very next slide, what you saw in that video, and I'm going to talk about Brown v. Board and lifting up the legacy, but what you saw in the video was really a community saying, you know, how are we going to make things better? So for in here, you'll see it in here, but also for Topeka and in Jennings, we have something called listening tours. So you saw me at the crosswalk. It wasn't because I like to walk the crosswalk. It's because parents will talk to you different in unstructured settings and they will in structured settings. So if you meet a parent in a hospital, they will talk to you different there than they will out on the corner. If you meet a parent in a schoolhouse, they will talk to you different there than they will at the football game. And so we in schools think that we can have parent conferences in schools and the normal 9 to 5 time and get the same kind of outcome, as opposed to going to the football game or the laundromat or the grocery store and having your parent conference there. Information will be different, engagement will be different, and the level of authenticity that you bring to the space will be different. Who are we to say that parents have to come to us as opposed to us coming to our parents? So what you saw in the video was me at a crosswalk, in part because we didn't need another crossing guard, but the other part was just to say, hey, Mom, what's going on? Hey, Dad, I love what you're doing. Hey, to different parents that were coming across, talking to students, saying, what happened at home last night? Hearing those stories make the difference in what we did in our schools. You saw the washer and dryers. The washer and dryers didn't start with Jennings. It started many years ago, and I think I have a slide in here that'll speak to that space. But the washer and dryers is because people said, you know what? Doc, we gotta wash clothes. We got other stuff. Those are the big rocks in this cup that's causing us not to be able to have our capacity filled. And so we remove those rocks by putting washer and dryers in schools. You wash one load of laundry for 1 hour in exchange for 1 hour of volunteerism. Parents will be in school every day. Every day. One load of laundry for free in exchange for 1 hour of volunteerism. So as we go through these slides, I'm just going to take you back just a moment so that you understand the legacy in which you stand on. I would be remiss with the 70th anniversary of Brown v. Board. That's this year. I have the privilege to serve in Topeka, Kansas. First Black female superintendent. Took 60 years for them to pick me. But now that I'm there, I continue to say that this legacy is really on all of us to make sure that we cannot predict the outcomes of schools based on the color of a child or where they live. Right now, I can tell you what schools will fail and what schools will achieve based on the zip code that they're in and based on the color of those students. That doesn't have to be the case. So when you look at this piece of just the Brown v. Board plaintiffs, the book starts off, the first chapter is really about Brown v. Board. So if you're a history buff, you're gonna love that first chapter. There's a picture of the plaintiffs and it talks about who are those plaintiffs, and those plaintiffs are parents. I want to make sure that you know that the decision in Plessy versus Ferguson about 60 years prior to Brown v. Board had provided a constitutional basis for racial segregation. And the Supreme Court's intention at that time was to uphold the 14th Amendment. However, what we know is that by 1951, parents of Black students across the country began to speak up, especially in Topeka, Kansas. And among those, Lucinda Todd, Zelma Henderson, Sadie Emanuel, Lena Carper, Oliver Brown, and those parents were just parents. And so, I didn't realize you moved that PowerPoint. Can you change to the next slide? And those parents, here's the thing, when I first came to Topeka, the first person I met was Linda Brown, one of the plaintiffs. She was just playing on the organ. And someone said, that's Linda. I said, Linda who? They said, Linda Brown. I said, the Linda Brown? Oliver Brown started from Brown v. Board? They said, yeah, what's wrong with you? I was just so amazed because here's the thing, sometimes we forget the history of the place that we're in. Think of the history of St. Louis and where we are. It was after 1954, a year later, that my mother actually integrated Soldan International High School in St. Louis City. If it were not for Linda Brown and all of the other plaintiffs, perhaps my parents would not have been able to give me the opportunity to now be the first Black female superintendent. If it were not for Linda Brown, in 1955 is when the bus boycott started. If it were not for the plaintiffs, perhaps the civil rights movement would have been delayed or perhaps wouldn't have happened at all. We have to know the history from which we stand on. And so that 1954 Supreme Court case voted unanimously in favor of these parents. And so let's take a look at today. As we go to this very next slide, and we look at those families and we think about the Brown v. Board case, and 70 years later, where we are now, are schools more integrated or are they more segregated? You think schools are more segregated today? Please raise your hand. All right. Are they segregated by race or poverty?
Poverty, I think.
Poverty, agree, poverty. Performance follows the contours of poverty. And redlining, the remnants of redlining is still real. In Topeka, Kansas, there's a place called Tennessee Town. 100 years ago, it was all Black and all poverty, and it's still 100 years later, all Black and all poverty. We have to ask ourselves why. And so poverty is segregation, but also race. Schools that are in high poverty environments that are clustered by race, perhaps intentionally by design, through urban planning, through redlining, that are still that way today, that are in concentrated poverty areas, those schools look different and perform differently and have a different impact based on the funding source. It talks about that in chapter 4. And funding is essential in terms of how to fund your vision. But if you say that you're waiting on resources, look, resources, they come and go with the leader, they come and go with the vision. Programs come and go, systems remain. So we're going to talk about how you build systems, no matter what the resources are that you have. And why? Because kids are counting on it. They're counting on you. And so in this last couple of slides that I'll share this evening, because much of what you'll read about in the book, I'm just going to mention a few of the chapters. This very next slide, and thank you so much, Shane, for changing these. We're not going to go to the CBS video, I don't think, because it's about 2 minutes. It is on the Left Bank website. But we will go to this because this is St. Louis. And so I want to share with you, here's the piece about if parents aren't involved. When parents are involved, these are the kinds of things that you'll hear, not only from me, but other people across this community and beyond. This is a picture of Ivory Prairie Park. If you haven't gone to Ivory Prairie Park and you're from St. Louis or not that far from St. Louis, I would encourage you to stop there. That's Rodney McAllister, and when he was in 4th grade, he joined us. He was a homeless student at one point. His mother was a crack addict, and his special needs brother lived with them as well. Right through the trees, that tree wasn't there when I was at Clark Academy, but right through that trees was his apartment. And I will tell you that one day I got to school, and Officer Prothero in Middleton called. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And they said, did all of your kids show up? That is not a phone call that you want to get when you were in a school that has 100% free lunch students, 99% African-American students. This story is in this book. And so I said, well, let me go look. The secretary back then that was at Clark School, I see that she's here today. So it's wonderful to see that you're here. And you're still a secretary in St. Louis City. All right, at a middle school. It's wonderful that you're here. And I will tell you on that morning, within an hour, Mr. Ellery Clark's class was about to go to the St. Louis Art Museum, and he stopped, and Joanne Carmen, the parent liaison, said, there's a student that's missing. Within about an hour, we identified Rodney based on the homework in his pocket. He had been mauled to death by dogs overnight. His mother never realized that he had never come home. I asked the community, didn't you hear him screaming and crying? They said, well, yeah, Doc, he screamed and cried all night. I said, how dare you? Why didn't you open the door? They said, how dare you judge us? You see, when we hear gunshots, we hide under the door, under the bed. When we call the police, I bet they come in your community, but not in mine. When we hear screaming, we close our blinds. You see, communities in fear are communities that are out for self-preservation. So this book talks about collective capacity. How do we remember that what happens to you is important to me? And if you do well, I do well. And if I do well, you do well. But we are all connected. And when we don't remember that, you have the cases like Rodney McAllister. It's actually why I wear scarves, and most people know that. That year I got the first Save the Children scarf, and ever since then I collect them because I wear them to remind me that if it's not for what we do for our parents and for the Rodney McAllisters, it can be the life or death of a child. So pouring into families matters. This is why it matters. Rodney's mother was incarcerated, and if the next slide shows the article that if you leave here and decide to look some of these up, this happened in your city, in my city. If you look this up, you'll see the story. You'll see people saying, I heard screaming all night. And that story continues to ring true about the fear of what happens when parents aren't authentically engaged. It's life or death for all of us. And so as these final slides conclude, in the interest of your time, as I look at this 15 minutes has passed, we're going to go to these next couple of slides really quickly. I started off with the fact that you can predict schools based on grades and socioeconomics. We can create schools where a child's race or class is no longer the predictor of how they perform. I know this from the results in Topeka. I know this from the experiences from other schools, and I believe I have at least a graph or two in here. I can't quite remember. If we go to those next couple of graphs, this is directly from the book. I won't spend a lot of time on this page, but it talks about funding inequities, but it shows you, as our teacher of 21 or 22 years mentioned, how you can look at segregated schools and you can predict outcomes based on poverty. This is a national statistics. In terms of the percentage of low-income students versus the students that aren't low-income that are proficient across the country. And so as we think about the impact that we all have, I'm gonna conclude, hopefully, believe I put something in Topeka on here on graduation rates. We wanna think about the fact that parent capacity matters. And in the book, it talks about parents today look different. Single parent homes, foster homes, parents who are the traditional two-parent working family. It gives activities that you can do, but not just activities, but systems that you can build. There's a difference between parent engagement and parent involvement. There are 3 categories based on research that parents fall into. Now, if I tell you too much, you won't read this book. I'm gonna tell you just a little bit. But most parents fall into the lowest tier, which is really showing up and listening. Most of us say, can you come to an event? Can you come see your child perform? Can you come to a parent conference? True engagement is beyond that level of just showing up, listening, and basic involvement. So this gives you some examples of what engagement is compared to involvement. It also gives you examples of how you can move parents from being listeners to being allies, to being advocates, how you can move them to that next level. And with those allies and advocates, you can change a school system. Now, we won't get through the next several slides, but I do want to make sure, and I'm gonna go back to this piece. In 2016, we changed how we supported parents. The slide that I jumped over was one of our national model for mental health. We did not have a student suicide for 6 consecutive years. We are probably the only school in the nation that can say that. We did that because parents, we have listening tours throughout the community. It's mentioned in the book. In the very back of this book, there is an appendix of resources, climate surveys that you can use. I'm gonna go very back. A vision and action template that's back here. When you say, we want all parents to be respectful, how you make sure you write that out of what that means, because what respectful to you in Jennings may mean something different for me in Alton in terms of what I want you to be doing in the school. Don't assume parents know. They don't show up knowing some of the language and some of our expectations, but the very back shares some of those pieces. But in this space for Topeka Public Schools, we still have listening tours. And what that means is we just sit and listen. So just imagine if I came to your community and I sat down and said, hey, I'm at the coffee shop. And sometimes it gets real uncomfortable because people will be quiet. So we just look at each other's eyes like you're the apple of my eye. Authentic engagement. And from that, they'll talk and share things like, I wish I had a daycare. I'm like, really? How much a daycare? Daycare costs a lot, y'all. How much a daycare? I said, daycare costs that much when you don't qualify? They said, yeah, if you're not on free lunch, you don't qualify. So we went to the Topeka Community Foundation. They gave us a grant for daycare. This is our 2nd year. It's now fully funded on its own. Would have never opened without a listening tour. Mental health, they said, I wish we would have mental health screening. We give eye exams and ear exams. They said, we're gonna give mental health exams. They said, to 13,000 kids? Yeah. They said, how are you gonna be busy? How are you gonna do that? I said, well, simple. Got it from my parents. We put 3 questions on the enrollment form. It's still there today. We used the AASA survey, Adverse Childhood Experiences. We used a research-based form and said, man, if you ask 3 questions, one is, did someone in your family die in the last year since you left school before summer? That's one of the questions. If you want to know the other questions, it's also on our Topeka Public Schools website under mental health, but it's also, some of those pieces are also in this book as well. No suicide for 6 consecutive years. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for teenagers, if you did not know that, in the nation. So Topeka has changed that, but after we changed what we did with parents, same like what we've done in Jennings, that was the key to having sustainable progress. So I'm going to conclude with that final item. I started off with St. Louis. CBS is on their website, and I encourage you to go to Left Bank Books, who's a partner. The book has already sold over 1,000 copies, and they expected it would sell 2,000 in a year. In the first 3 weeks, 1,000 copies have sold. God, it's so good. I'm just amazed at how many parents want to know, how many people want to know, how can I change schools and help my parents and families become more engaged? And so with that, I'm going to share with you just that I would Topeka would spank me, y'all, if I don't share something about Topeka today. And so there's a 2-minute clip, and here's the thing, we started asking our families, and before you go to that clip, there is a Jennings Hope House. I don't know if Jennings still has Hope House, and I think they do. These are 2 slides for families. This slide in the next one, I'm sorry. And slide in the next slide. These are parents in this van because parents weren't showing up for speech pathology services. And this lady, Peggy Fisher, is mentioned in the book. There's a lessons learned section in every section of the book, every chapter. And Peggy Fisher said, Dr. Anderson, parents aren't showing up. People say that parents don't care about how their kids speak. People say that parents are just too busy. When they're little, they can't take them, and blah, blah, blah. Then she came back and said, Dr. Anderson, I said, well, have you done the listening tour? Have you asked the parents what gets in the way? She said, yeah, transportation. See, we think when we give people a bus pass, that fixes everything. Sometimes you gotta take multiple buses to get to one thing. Sometimes you don't have time to get on the bus. Sometimes you don't have someone to walk you to the bus. So she asked that she have a van that was an old van in the one of the yard areas. Could she paint it and put some dots, called it the top spot? And could she have her own mobile speech pathology bus? She created her own speech pathology van. It actually won national awards. These vans are all over the country in school districts across the country. The top spot. So she drives up to the home, she parks and says, honk honk, your speech pathology service is here. Parents come in and they get services on the spot. It's incredible. And so this very next piece, this is how you change the way that you think. You see, money doesn't get in the way. It's how we think that our mindset gets in the way. So many positive and amazing things can happen if you think differently about the circumstances. The last parent piece is a Hope House. Now, I am the daughter of a pastor, so there's always 3 closings before I actually close. So I know I said I was closing 2 closings ago, but since my dad is here, a pastor, I had to do it one more time. So I'm going to end with this Hope House, and we're going to show the video, okay? And that video will be I Believe in You, the speaker campus. I think it's minimized. Oh, but before you get to the video, I want to done with the other piece. Oh, that's all right. Woo, have mercy. Shane is just doing an amazing job. He works for Left Bank Books. I'm telling you. Acknowledge the people in your space. Acknowledge the people in your space. Hope House. There is a student, and this is again a parent piece. Parents look different today. Some students don't have parents. Here's a student, my favorite student, Kevon Munger in Jennings School District. And I was at a musical program at Jennings Senior High, and he was supposed to sing, and he wasn't up there singing. And I said, young man, aren't you supposed to be singing? You're letting down your staff. You're letting down the rest of the students. He has a beautiful voice. I said, why aren't you singing? He said, I wasn't feeling it. You wasn't feeling it. Oh my goodness. Well, I think I'm gonna take you home and talk to your parents so you will feel like singing next time. He gets in my car and I said, we have to hurry up. At the time, there was a football team, the Rams, that were in town. And I said, they're supposed to be giving us a big donation. So hurry up, get in the car, and let me take you home. Within a few minutes, I realized that Kevon was homeless, had been homeless for years, and no one noticed. He didn't sing because he didn't have shoes. His shoes had been taken from wherever he was, his choir shoes. You see, so often we judge people based on what we see in outward appearances. But when you get to know families, in this case, this child had no parent. This book talks about what you do when that happens. So the Hope House was born from that because I came back and actually Mrs. Alexander was in Jennings at the time in the HR department. Jennings is a small district, only about 4 or 5 people in the central office. So I came back and said, what if we, I wonder is there a place that has like houses where the kids can live in them? I mean, like the show Facts of Life. Y'all remember that back in the day? Where people live in the house and teachers take care of them. And they said, what in the world? That night we went home. Miss Alexander came back the next day and said, hey, I saw something on the news. This is why you want to tell your story, educators. Tell us the things that are happening. It's a place called Joe's Place in Maplewood, Richmond Heights. I said, Joe's Place? She said, yes, it's actually a house, what you just said just yesterday. And apparently they actually have people that live there, kids, like that's life. We went and visited Joe's Place. We left there and said, do we have dilapidated buildings in our district that we could borrow $50,000? They said, $50,000, you're gonna need more than that to fix up a house. That's faith. Took the $50,000. We took this dilapidated old priest rectory that had been closed that cost $50,000 to tear down, which is why we're still standing. And we said, we're gonna renovate this house. Now I like HGTV. I said 30 days, y'all, we're gonna flip this house. October was the idea, in 2015, and the tours were in 2016, but the very next month, 30 days later, because we told the story, Washington Post picked it up, millions of dollars came in, Wash U helped with the floors, and then we just cut out things of pretty things that we liked and put them on the wall and invited rich people, and they took those pictures and bought those things. It's easy as that. Who would have thought? Stainless steel in the kitchen. And then we said to Missouri Baptist, we can't do this alone. Can you help us find some parents for children who don't have the traditional parents? They became our partner. And they had parents that wanted to have a home at no cost, mortgage-free, that could be the foster home. They are still, the Hope House is still funded fully by donations. The Missouri Baptist Foster Home Agency provides the parent. Every child that is homeless can live in that house. And those people are people from around the country touring that house. And I think maybe one of them might have been Normandy superintendent. Those aren't all of our teachers. Some of them are our teachers, but the rest of this was a conference that we gave. So these are people from across the country, and some are teachers that were giving tours of the Hope House. That's why they have the lanyards on with their names on the front. So anything is possible when you change how you think, and you remember that without parental involvement, without parent engagement, everything else that you do will not be sustainable, and you won't hear that probably anywhere else. This is my 20th year as a superintendent, and in this 20th year, we've learned this sweet spot of making sure that we provide services and resources, but we also ensure that we are investing in families. Investing in the child, but investing in the whole family. So very quickly, we're going to show this final video. Here's this video. We said to people, and we asked students and parents about, do they feel like people believe in them? Do they have a household that believes in them? Do they have someone that when they come home looks them in the eye that says, how was your day? Do they have a parent that works 2 or 3 jobs that they might not see on a day-to-day basis, that they just know they care about them just because, but they don't actually stop to say, I believe in you. And so even when you have parents who have those predicaments where they can't always be home, we as teachers, as educators, we are in place of those parents. And so while a parent is a child's first educator, we're going to build their capacity. We're also going to train families how to make sure they support, they take the baton that we give them when they leave the classroom and they continue the work that they can. And when they can't do all the things that they need to, we must step in that space and continue what we know they need to be doing at home. And so this piece of believing in children, this is how powerful this is. This video is pretty short, it's 3 minutes. And as you see the video, all we did was walk into the classroom and tell students that we believe in them and watch what happens. We're just gonna turn off a couple of lights if we could. Or we're gonna make it pitch black. You have enough shading light? Okay.
I was asked to choose a student who I believe in.
A student that I especially believe in, and one that makes me want to come to work every day.
That we truly believe in.
And I chose you, Zoe, and I chose you.
And I chose you, Kennedy.
And I chose you.
You did?
I chose you for so many reasons. The minute you walked in my room, I can tell you are special. Your positive attitude and your willingness to literally go out of the way to be kind to others is inspiring to me. I just love coming to school and seeing you. You're so kind and funny and honest. You inspire me because I know life is a struggle for you right now, but every day you come to school smiling. I believe in you a lot more than sometimes I think you believe in yourself. And I know things are going to come up that are hard, but I know you're going to get through them and you're going to continue to smile every day.
and be the best you can possibly be.
We've known each other for a couple of years, and you've been through a lot, and you continue to push forward and do great things, and you always have a smile on your face.
Because I see you moving yourself in ways that are going to benefit you and help you grow and benefit your future.
I don't know if you remember or not, but when you started first grade with me, you didn't like reading at all. Do you remember that? And now you love reading, like you want to read all the time. You have inspired me to be a better teacher. I look forward to your hugs every morning and your smile every time you come to school.
I chose you because you're a bright spot for lots of people. You come to school and you smile every day, and it can turn a not so good day into a really good day. I hope that you believe in yourself just as much as I believe in you.
Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
I believe in myself.
I believe in myself.
I believe in myself. I believe in myself.
I believe in myself.
I believe in me.
As we turn on these lights, when we build parent capacities, we turn on these lights, we are building a community. We're building a community of learners, and we can't do it without parents, and we can't do it without educators. So thank you so much for investing in the book, for investing a little bit of time this evening. I'm going to be doing the book signing up here. I believe you did not get a sticky when you came in. My sister who's back there will hand you a sticky because we are going to just call a couple of numbers, and there's a giveaway table. It has 3 books on it. If you'd like to get a book on the way out. And it has a few other things, and I think I'm giving out 10 Left Bank book cards. So if we have 10 gift cards, you can either get them from the young ladies at the table, and the owner of Left Banks is here with us this evening. Can you wave from where you are? Thank you for being such an amazing partner for us. We appreciate you. All right, so the numbers. Gabrielle, what number am I calling up to? You went in order, so what's the top number? Okay, so have you given out the last number? Okay, so she's still working on it, all right. Any questions as she gives out those last 2 tickets? Any questions? All right. Do you have questions?
How did you get everybody to be as excited as you are?
Oh my goodness. You know, when I was in Jennings, they weren't as excited when I first came because their salaries had been frozen and they were in a deficit. So you don't have to start off with excitement. Excitement is something you build. And as soon as people see some of that momentum and those listening tours, starting with our teachers, as soon as they feel like they've been heard, they really change the way that they're willing to invest in themselves and others. It's been amazing. So the listening tours I mentioned are for parents, but we have listening tours for teachers. You type in building teacher capacity. John Hattie and I, if you're familiar with who that is, he and I both just did a workshop in Topeka Public Schools in Topeka, Kansas. Well, we opened it up for anyone in Kansas. And he talks a lot about teacher efficacy, building teacher capacity. Take out the word teacher, put in the word parent. Everything he talks about works for parents as well. She's on that last sticky, so any other questions on this end?
I want to know more about the listening tours.
All right, you gotta read the book, I'm telling you. All right, so the first number that we're gonna call is number 1. Look at that. All right, so, and you already have a book unless you want to get one for someone else, but you also have some other giveaways and a $5 gift card from Left Bank Books. Feel free to get your gift. Was there something else? 29 is the number I'm going up to. All right, and we thank you for number 1. And may I ask, what district are you from again, or what area? Alton, Illinois. So Alton, Illinois, congratulations on whatever gift you pick, whether it's a gift card or something from that state. All right. The next number, I'm just gonna call two more and then we're gonna start the signing. The next number is number 23. 23, is there 23? 23 is at the table? Well, still buy the book first. I think you buy the book, but let's continue to do what you're doing. Just kidding. Oh, you were about to buy, had you purchased yet? Oh, well, there's a book that is already purchased for you, 23. Isn't that beautiful? Now, see, that's a God thing right there. Have mercy. All right, we're gonna call one more number, and the number is 19. You're 19? Okay. All right, okay. So on 19, there are some journals back there. There are some Juneteenth books back there. A workshop, oh my goodness, that is not on the free table. Sorry. I stopped doing that for free about 15 years ago. But those are free. It's just so wonderful. Oh my goodness. Giselle Thomas, she is also a family member in addition to an administrator. So just beautiful. All right, with that is the final number. As we prepare to conclude, again, I thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and some music as we do the signing. Yes.
One more thing, if you want your book signed and you have not filled out one of my sticky pads,
or just tell me really loudly what to put your name on there. But if she gave you a sticky pad and you have a pen, please put your name on it. It just moves things along with signing your book. That way I know what name to put on there. I'm gonna turn on music and sit on up front, and feel free to line on up the book. If you would like a photo, we're gonna move that banner over here by the table. And let me just say, my sister, Gabrielle, this is the first time that you've been anywhere where I've spoken. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. And then my daughter, Whitney Anderson, who works in oncology at WashU. Thank you for coming.